So before I get to the main topic of this video, I do want to say that the reason I haven't uploaded in quite a while is because I have barely any time to make videos anymore. I know that I said I was going to do a Black Swan video next, and I still really want to make that video. I just don't have the time right now. Expect to see shorter videos like this for a bit while I work on some bigger stuff in the background. I'm excited to get back into making YouTube videos, and I figured the best way to get back into it is to talk about some newer movies. Now, these quick reviews are going to be unscripted, just my general thoughts here. So I'm inevitably gonna miss some things and not talk about things that I might have wanted to talk about. So sorry about that, but yeah, let's get into it. So today we're going to be looking at Halloween Kills, released in 2021, directed by David Gordon Green. I have seen some extremely mixed reviews on this movie, and if you have been on Twitter at all since it's come out, you probably have too. It's been trending multiple times. And yeah, people just don't know how to feel about this. And that's completely okay, and I completely see why some people don't like it. It seems to be very much a love it or hate it type of movie. And I will say I fall very strongly on one of these sides, and that's the love it side. I think this movie is really phenomenal. It's one of my favorites of the year so far. It's one of my favorites in the Halloween franchise, period. It's a really great time. So, yeah, let's get into the good, and then I'll move over to the bad. There will be no spoilers. I'm not going to talk about spoilers, but yeah, let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is that I think that the performances across the board pretty much are pretty great. Jamie Lee Curtis really stands out here, even though she does have limited screen time here. She's not in it nearly as much as she was in 2018, which I wasn't really expecting, but they did do. But I will say that didn't bother me as much as I thought it would, because I don't know, I thought it was handled much better than something like Halloween 2 did it. Because in that movie she's just like unconscious for most of it, but here she actually still feels important, even though she is kind of sitting in a hospital bed for quite a while. But yeah, most of the performances here are pretty great. I do think that Judy Greer had some weird moments here. She had some weird moments in 2018 too, so I guess I was kind of expecting it. She's mostly really good, but there were just a couple of lines that she read pretty weird and that I wasn't super into. But other than that, I thought everyone did a really great job. A big complaint I've seen for this movie is that it doesn't really move the story forward. And I completely agree. It really doesn't. But I do think that even though it doesn't do that, it still does great things for the characters. It still has really solid character moments inside this, especially with Laurie and Officer Hawkins. I think they were pretty great here, even though again they weren't really in it a whole lot, not as much as they were in 2018. So yeah, I can understand why you'd be upset with it not really moving anything forward, but I think it did really good things for the characters. Same thing with Allison. I thought Allison was great here, and she's on track. As long as they nail her in Halloween Ends, she could be one of my favorite final girls ever. I could like her just as much as Laurie Strode because she's great in these two movies so far. So I'm excited to see what they do with her. I also feel like this movie still feels like an important part of the Michael Myers saga. It still feels necessary. It still feels like something that needed to happen. Just not a whole lot happened in it that really moved a whole lot forward, which is completely fine in my opinion. But I completely understand if that disappoints you, especially coming off of 2018, which was really rich with story and characters. I also think that the pacing is mostly good. I will talk about a bit later on where I didn't think it was as well handled, but for the most part, other than that one bit I'm going to talk about, the pacing is really great. Like I was halfway through it without even realizing it. Like I thought I was only like 30 minutes in, and I'm almost an hour in. So that's great. I always love when a movie can do that. It just sucks me in to the point where I don't even realize how far I am into it. That's really nice. That's always good. I was never really, checking the time, but that's when you know. That's when I at least know that a movie isn't paced very well when you're constantly checking to see how long is left. I didn't do that at all during watching this, and yeah, it was really solid for the most part. Also, the score is perfect. It's legitimately perfect. I think it might be better than Halloween 2018's. And Halloween 2018's score is one of my favorite scores of all time. Like, legitimately, I think it's phenomenal. But I think I might like this a little more. Uh, I mean, The Shape chases Allison from Halloween 2018 is a masterpiece. But, like, I don't know, there are moments here that are just as good as that, and they're more consistent here. And it's a perfect balance of using the old stuff that we're familiar with, The classic tunes mixed with this original stuff that they came up with. That's just genius. It's wonderful. The score is legitimately perfect. I said earlier how, if you're wanting more rich story and rich characters, you're not really going to get it. And yeah, I really mean that because Michael is really front and center in this movie. He gets a ton of screen time doing Michael things, and I love it. This kind of ties in with my next point that the violence in this movie is absolutely through the roof. It's completely over the top at some points, but I loved it. I loved every second of it. It might be the most violent movie in the Halloween series, which you might hear and like you might think for a minute, be like, the main Halloween movies aren't really always that gory. But then you think of the Rob Zombie movies, and you're like, oh yeah, those things are disgusting, and they're some of the most violent stuff I've ever seen. Halloween 2, with its violence and its tone combined, literally left me feeling sick after it. And I love that movie. I really love it. It's a hot take, but I love that movie. Uh, I was legitimately feeling sick after that movie, partly because of the violence. And this movie might be just as violent. It didn't really affect me the same way as Halloween 2, but in terms of it being there, it is almost on that level, maybe on that level. It's debatably you can make a strong argument for it being the most violent in the series, which is insane. And I really enjoyed it. I really had a fun time watching it. I also think that the side characters that come up are a lot of fun to watch. I don't know, not all of them are really needed, but I don't know, they're just fun to watch. They're entertaining. They add personality to this, especially Big John, Little John. They're fun. I like them. So, yeah, they did a good job on the side characters. And finally, the ending is completely insane. But I love it. I completely loved how insane it got, and it makes me even more hyped for Halloween Ends. I do hope that they actually stick with this, and they stick with this ending, and you'll know what I mean if you've seen it. I really hope they just commit to this, and I really hope they don't pull a Halloween 5 and go back on what made the ending of the last one so good. So, fingers crossed for that. I have a lot of hope, and I'm very optimistic that they will nail this after having two phenomenal Halloween movies in a row. But I guess we'll just have to see. Now, moving on to the bad, again, the pacing was mostly good, but there is a hospital bit near the end of the second act, uh, kind of in the middle, near the end of the second act. It went on a little too long. I don't know. It just felt too uninteresting at times. And I like what they were trying to do there, and I do like how they executed a lot of it. That's another thing I've seen people say. I'm not going to spoil anything again, but I've seen a lot of people say they don't like how they executed that bit. But I thought it was good. I thought it was well handled, and yeah, it entertained me for the most part until near the end of it, where I started to get a little sick of it. But it wasn't too bad. Also, there were some character moments that just completely felt illogical, and their decisions literally didn't make sense in the slightest. But they weren't frequent enough to become a big problem. It was just little things like this isn't really a spoiler because it's literally in the trailer, but a lady dies near the beginning of the movie, and she's running from Michael, and she goes to unlock the door, and she unlocks the door successfully, but then Michael pops up in the doorway, and then she turns around, grabs a knife, and screams, and just keeps screaming at him instead of running, and he takes his sweet time walking over to her, but she just sits there and screams, even though the door is literally unlocked, and it doesn't show it like jam or nothing. It just shows she turned around and stopped trying and just didn't leave. It was strange. It's just little stuff like that happened from time to time, that kind of makes you scratch your head a bit, but it wasn't a big problem at all. And yeah, that's legitimately all I can think of. This movie just slaps, man. This movie is so good. It made me so happy. I was worried they would mess it up, coming off of 2018, which I'm a big fan of. They really didn't. They really nailed this one, and I'm happy to say that. And I'm happy to say that this is a 9 out of 10. Again, one of my favorites of the year. Super entertaining. Highly, highly, highly recommend it if you're a fan of slashers in the slightest. It's a great time. Do rewatch 2018. It literally follows. It literally picks up right after 2018 ends. So if you don't really remember that movie well, you're gonna be quite confused. But I don't know, just watch both of them back to back. They make a great double feature. They really flow into each other perfectly. Uh, yeah, I love it. So again, there probably are some things that I missed here. Like I already know some, like the whole mob mentality thing I was a big fan of, and the 1978 flashback sequences were insane, really well done, but I just completely forgot to talk about them, so sorry about that. But yeah, that's about it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see all of you guys in the next one.